Everybody who follows sport likes to go to Wimbledon because it is the peak of tennis, or they like to watch the best soccer, they like to watch the best rugby, and Formula One is the best motor racing. It's the top class of motor racing. It is phenomenal because it is glamorous, it's full of money, it is the peak. And the guys, I mean, you meet all these people on the way up in motor racing, and there's hundreds here, and there's thousands here, and there's tens of thousands down here. But slowly, as you grow up with them, as you meet them, you get more involved, more and more involved in the very peak. Those people who can get to the very, very top of motor racing. There's this fantastic determination about the drivers, because the drivers are extraordinary people. They have a determination which I don't think you find anywhere else. Perhaps you do in other sportsmen, but they are just so single-minded about what they want.
Maybe we are crazy, but it's important, very important to be the quickest, and I don't know why I'm always quick there. Maybe because I am crazy.
It's a combination, because in a way, we have to have teamwork. We have to be together. But on the other side, you have to be quite a strong character for yourself on the circuit, because you fight against everybody else. You're alone in the car.
Formula One, it is very much the peak of mechanical engineering, because the engineers are allowed to express themselves freely.
It is one of the pinnacles of engineering that you can work in the world, really. I'd rate this with spacecraft and military aircraft, that sort of engineering.
Aerospace, the timescales are much, much longer. You'll design a fighter and then it'll actually fly in 10 years' time, whereas in Formula One, you'll do something today and see it on the circuit tomorrow.
Motor racing is a job that you love it or you hate it. You cannot work as a normal job, as a normal industry. The commitment is so great that basically you can only do it by love.
Team spirit in Formula One is enormous. If you're part of that team, you live 24 hours a day with that team.
11 teams compete for the Formula One World Championship. Each team races 2 cars, each car with its own driver and set of race engineers. The 16-race season runs from March to October, with grueling races every 2 weeks at the height of the season. We'll follow one team as it prepares for the oldest and most prestigious of the races, the only race still run on ordinary city streets, the Monaco Grand Prix.
In the beginning, it's always that you want to prove that you're better than anybody else, and then you get to a stage where we won the championship in 94, 95, so then you want to carry that on.
Benetton Formula is an international company. It doesn't want to be kept down by the restriction of borders. I mean, the world today is very small, and Benetton Formula wants to be an international company, try to get the best out of everybody. And of course, England and Italy don't want to be mean to anybody, but I believe historically they represent most of the racing industry.
It's based in England, in Oxfordshire, so there's a very English flavour to it, but also very multicultural. We have some of the directors, so we have a Spanish director, and obviously the team is Italian-owned, and the chief executive is Rocco Benetton. So there's a very multicultural flavour to the team. We have Germans and French and various nationalities working for us.
We're a team where, engineering does come first. We, I think, do a good job, and we enjoy ourselves doing it.
Our bottom line is to have the fastest possible racing car, so as much time as possible must be spent on getting the fastest car. Your average road car, when you're accelerating, the initial part will feel very quick, and then it'll be a real sort of drag to try and get the last 5-10 miles an hour out of it, whereas a Formula One car will just keep on going and going and going, and that's where having 750 horsepower really helps you. We'll see about 220, 230 miles an hour. The deceleration is probably where the Formula One car is the best, where it's the biggest step from a road car. when drivers come to Formula One, the acceleration they'll be fairly used to, and the cornering it'll take them a while to get used to, but the deceleration even the drivers will come back, some drivers, and so they just can't believe how hard they can press the brake pedal and how much deceleration they've got. The physical limit is how hard the driver can press the brake pedal, and that's what's limiting him. So really it's just up to them to go bang on the brakes as hard as possible. It's 150 to 75 you could scrub off in a second, second and a half sort of thing. And you'll see the cars at the circuit, the discs will glow red hot from the amount of energy we're dumping into them.
Probably the biggest difference between this and Indy is that we're constructors. Benetton is a race car designer and constructor, and all of the Formula One teams are constructors, so we produce our own cars, and there are 11 individual cars out there, whereas in Indy there are, I think, 3 manufacturers.
The technology of those cars is quite extraordinary. You go to a modern Formula One factory and the standard of workmanship that you see there is just amazing. The Benetton team has tremendous sense of history. It's been in the same sort of area in England all its life, really. And of course that's incredibly important in a team, to have that backbone, all those people who have been there for a long time and who can basically lead everybody else and say this is the way it's done.
A good 90% of the car is produced in home. We really rely very little from outside. That's something that Benetton believe very, very strongly, that the technology and the skills to be able to produce a car is always emphasized, and we must do the things in home.
A top Formula One team is represented by 350 specialists, everyone with a very precise job, and each one of them somehow you have to trust.
This is the clean room, what we call clean room. Very similar to the aerospace industry. You can say that a good 75% of the car is now built with carbon fiber materials. And basically the properties of the carbon is a lot stronger, a lot harder, and a lot lighter than any other material exists. Carbon fiber is a technique that's been used for many, many years already, but in aerospace industry. And since the 80s, we've been using in motor racing industry, particularly in Formula One. All that gets then put under vacuum to make sure that every single skin is nicely consolidated each other. And from here it goes into the big ovens that we will see in a moment. That goes up to 350 degrees, and the little one that goes up to 450 degrees. And you can see here we have already a half of the chassis that's ready to go and get cooked. Now all that creases is basically everything that is come up from the clean room is under vacuum, so it's no air trap between the skins, and from here then now goes into the autoclave to get cooked, to get the final product.
Now I'm just going to cool this off so I can take it out of the...
There's still a few bits in the car that need to be done by hand. Everything is to do with aluminium sheet. It needs to be folded, bended, welded, exhaust, that kind of things the machine cannot produce. We still do it by hands with a very specialized people that we train for many, many years. But it's very difficult to get these days.
Titanium is very light and very strong. We use a lot of titanium in the car. And after I've done that, then it gets, to make it a bit lighter, it just gets cut out like that from there. You can start off with a flat sheet of material like that, and through your own effort produce something else.
It's just something I've always wanted to do, go on to Formula One. It's the top thing, you know. to be able to weld and fabricate in the Formula One team is obviously the highest grade you can get to.
Now we're going to move into the machine shop department. Basically here you can see how technology has been growing through the years. That's a very conventional upright. An upright where you have the hub. An upright is what supports the wheel and the suspension.
Nowadays these are solid titanium, made out of one piece, compared to a few years ago when we used steel pieces which were made out of lots of different pieces. Then they were fabricated together. Nowadays with the titanium pieces, not only are they lighter but they're stronger because they're made in one piece, much more reliable, much less likely to break. Basically we start off with a billet which will be something like this. It will be shaped like this on some of the lathes down in the machine shop. Then they will have the holes drilled in it, like this. Basically they will go on these machines here, and a wire will be thread through the holes. A current is passed through the wire and the water carries a spark. As it moves through the component, it erodes away the metal, thus leaving the hole where it was and a finished component, a finished part. This job here will take between 18 and 20 hours to finish.
Here we are. We arrive now to our final destination, but nevertheless it's probably the most important area of a company with our objective. This is what we call the drawing office or the technical office. Here's where everything, all the concepts, all the items are designed, are thought, and the success of the Formula One team is as good as you can have. That department is basically our heart.
For this season, I think there will be maybe 5% the same components as last year, and we've changed virtually every other part of the car.
To make a car is around 5,500 drawings. That's what we produce here every year in 4 months. And to actually assemble a car, if you take in consideration washers, nuts, bolts, everything, you're talking about 13,000 components.
It's best you're going to get, I think.
We've changed the length of the car, we've changed the weight distribution of the car, we've changed the aerodynamics of the car. There's no area where the car's the same. And in fact, every year we make big steps in the car and how the car performs and how much grip the driver has to play with.
The whole process just carries on non-stop, week after week. You do the same thing basically. You rebuild the car to go to the next race. Once you get on the roller coaster, it's very difficult to get off.
The collective efforts of over 300 people and a budget of over $50 million, which is moderate by Formula One standards, go toward a single goal: to produce just 6 of the best racing cars in the world.
We start in March in Australia, then we go nearly all around the planet. We go to Brazil, we have races in Argentina, then back to Europe. This weekend we were in Canada. In the end of the year we go to Malaysia and Japan.
Each Formula One team has 2 race drivers, often one slightly more experienced than the other. Either driver can win points toward the championship for his team.
It's really a full-time job, but when you sit in the car, then there's no more questions. It's just fantastic to do it.
Because there are 2 young drivers, like young and nice driver like me and Alex.
We are sort of looking for excellence within the driver, just like the engineers are looking for excellence within the car. And none of us will ever know what it is unless you actually could get in the car and experience it. It may look fun saying I'd love to jump in the car and chase Fisichella reverts around the track, but I guarantee you if you lasted 1 lap that you'll come out and you probably wouldn't be able to move your head for a week. It's quite incredible, the demands.
It's a total body workout driving an F1 car. They drive for anything up to an hour and a half in different ambient temperatures and conditions, so it's very, very stressful on the body. It's the actual effect of man and machine now, rather than having just a human element, we say something like soccer or running. Now we're looking at the forces of machine acting upon the human body. And the main one is G-force. It's head, neck, shoulders.
What we've got to look at is the mechanics of what goes on whilst driving at those kind of speeds and trying to simulate the stresses of G-force on the neck. Driving around the circuit will do a lot to get your neck conditioned, but probably the most important thing is to take them beyond what they're used to during testing and racing, so that hopefully it's another factor they've not got to worry about. Not we've got to be sitting there thinking, oh, there's another corner, I'm starting to get tired. The idea is to totally focus on, you know, maximum speed and maximum lap times.
And if you looked at the drivers after the race, there were some drivers who were like this. They could not keep their heads up at the end of the race.
That's good. Keep your feet nice and square, that's it.
The legs are under quite a lot. I mean, pressure with the brake pressure pedal, you know, when you start talking to the engineers and find out what sort of pressure's going down on the pedal, that's probably an interesting factor. It's like doing one leg power leg press every time they come into a hard, fast corner. But if you imagine applying sort of pressures like that, then suddenly you're getting your head thrown sideways, probably the same weight as your torso, and having to keep pulling it back. Concentrate, you know, it is incredible.
And at the end of the race, you'll see the drivers who are fit and the drivers who aren't fit. At the end of the race, the drivers who are fit will still be pushing and still be getting, and it's the end of the race when they can pick up places with drivers who are tired or their cars are worn out. So it's very important to keep pushing all the way through.
It's basically a one-year job, 12 months, nearly 24 hours, and you have to live the life and live the job. Because in wintertime I can't afford of eating hamburgers and drinking beer and whatever, because I have to keep fit.
I know externally it might seem that you're sitting in a car and it's very relaxing and you don't have to work that hard. But what you have to remember is there's a very high level of concentration. You know, you're driving a car at 200 miles an hour, 220 miles an hour. You have to stay focused for 2.5 hours and work very hard on that focus.
What does it take to be a really good Formula One driver? First of all, amazing reaction. A sort of Pentium 3 brain or Pentium 4 brain up there, because that's the best processor you can possibly get, is the brain. A judgment of things, a prejudgment of things, looking ahead, a long way ahead, perhaps 2 corners ahead.
It's an extreme demand of applying maximum power and concentration, allowing all the variables around, which is other cars around you, chicanes, hairpins, and judgment is the big thing in this game.
Get ready.
It's just to train your neuromuscular system to get the brain used to these reaction times. The lights will only come on, lights 4 and 5 will be the only lights that will light up, and I've got 0.5 of a second from visually picking the light up in my peripheral vision to actually hitting the button. And it won't record if I press early and anything.
Time up.
There you go. What a great score. 1. It's very, very hard. I mean, you can't look at the light. You've got to look dead ahead, and you are working on peripheral vision. What we usually use at the moment is we usually do 500 metres of rowing flat out to exhaustion, straight off there, system into the seat, press the button and go, and they're scoring scores of high 20s and 30s.
It's a bit dangerous, but it's crazy, and as I said, the more crazy, the more I like it. And you get a kind of rhythm on this circuit where you don't want to stop, because you just go. You are so much concentrated, more than 100% into the driving here, and that's a kind of a drug for the race driver.
A great driver has so much to think about in his career. It isn't just the driving of the car. He has to handle his life. He has to handle his commercial side of life. And a lot of pressure from press, people like myself coming along, the team saying, come and talk to our guests today. He's got so many different things he's got to do, while at the same time having to be an extremely good race driver.
Our job is just to sort of keep everything going smoothly so people can get on with the bits that they need to do, really, whilst at the same time keeping the sponsors happy, who are very, you know, obviously more fundamental part of the team. The better we do our job, the easier it is for them, because, for example, the drivers, at the end of the day, they're there to drive the car. They have to do interviews too. But what we don't want to do is completely exhaust them by running them around or making sure they're not there, like we've taken them off to do a special visit and they're not there when they need to have an engineers meeting or run in the car.
All the sponsor dinners you have, all the motor shows going on, exhibitions, you have to see a lot of people, the press, then you have to sort out your own life.
So where are you from? From Morocco?
But a lot of these guys, they've been extremely good race drivers since they were 9 years old. And for 11 years, you know, they've managed themselves in karts, then in Formula 3, Formula 3000, Grand Prix racing. So that side almost becomes natural to them. And it's the other side that they have to get used to. And occasionally we see a driver come into Formula 1 and he really doesn't have a strong enough character to handle all the rest of it. And you see his driving beginning to go to pot. And you know he's a good driver, but he just can't handle it.
I'm 25. I started Formula 1 with about 22, 23 years of age. And then all these things are coming and are thrown on you. Like it's massive. So you have so many new emotions, but you have no time to sort them out, don't do mistakes, because otherwise you're out the business as fast as you came in. So you have to stay with both foot on the ground.
Formula One cars get from 0 to 100 in under 4 seconds. To ask your questions about racing speeds, go to On the Inside at Discovery.com all this week. Brought to you by the document company Xerox. Keep the conversation going. Share the knowledge.
All the winter time, long December, January, we are testing in the south of Europe or sometimes in Africa. We go there to test the new car, to test new tires for the coming season.
It's very important testing because normally we try some new parts of the car or some different setup for the next race.
Yeah. Most of the times I like it. If you have days of trouble or some testing days, you just do 10 or 15 laps because you have to change the car completely. Then you have to wait very long, and then you see the others running. You're very hungry to go out and do also some lap times. But that's quite normal for the job. But normally I love testing because you develop. You have to go in a close relationship with your engineer and work something out, and that's a nice part of the job.
We're operating in the real world, and there's no one clear-cut picture of what the best way to operate is. We have to look at all the various influences on the car and try and work out what's going to give us the best possible performance. Before we go to a circuit, we will work on a computer, and on the computer we will program in the motor racing circuit, program in the car, and then we'll drive that car around the circuit. And as we're driving that, we'll do a lap on the circuit, and then we'll change the front and rear wings on the car, we'll do another lap on the circuit, we'll change the front and rear wings, we'll do another lap on the circuit, and we'll get a graph which gives us lap time around the circuit and what wings we run on the car, and that will give us an idea of how we set the car up when we go there. At the moment we're testing 2 cars in Barcelona. We are trying to do work on setup for Monaco. The difficulty is that Barcelona is a very fast circuit. Monaco is a very slow circuit. So we have to look at how the car is behaving in the slow speed corners, and to a certain extent ignore how the car is in the fast corners and ignore the lap time, and just try and divide the circuit down to the corners that we think are going to be useful for Monaco. So if we make a setup change and the driver says the car is much better in a slow speed corner, but it's worse than the high-speed corners. For us, that would be a good Monaco setup.
We'll try some different springs, anti-roll bar, but also the maximum downforce. Because Monte Carlo is a very small circuit and you need the maximum downforce.
Which means we're running big wings on the car to produce a lot of downforce. And therefore we need to test the wings, we need to do a race distance, that the wings are okay with the vibrations of the car from the engine, that they're not breaking under the pressure which the downforce is producing.
In most cases, obviously, you use wings to lift something up. For example, an aeroplane uses wings to give lift, to fly. We turn these wings upside down, and we mount them on the back of the car here, and on the front of the car as well. And with these upside down wings, we push the whole car down onto the road surface as it goes along. As well as the wings on the back and the front of the car to generate downforce, we also have underbody aerodynamics which suck the car effectively onto the road surface. If you go around to the back of the car, we've got a Venturi shape which basically sucks the whole car down onto the road. It's almost effectively like you've got a vacuum cleaner underneath the car, permanently running, sucking the car down. And that's what gives the car immense amounts of grip.
In a sport where design and testing are increasingly important, the Benetton team gains a competitive edge by maintaining the racing world's most advanced wind tunnel.
In order to make gains on the car aerodynamically, we need to verify them in the wind tunnel, which basically means that we'll spend hours and hours testing new ideas, new components, and generally making sure that any new gain we think we found works well with the whole of the rest of the car. We will test somewhere between 20 and 30 variations where we'll run the car through many different ride heights. We'll actually roll the car, yaw the car, pitch the car, so that the model is actually seeing any conditions it would see on the circuit. The car is suspended over a rolling road. The rolling road is synchronized with the airspeed, which is 150 miles per hour. I've actually sat in the full-size car in the tunnel myself earlier this year and was absolutely astonished at the buffeting that you get. Again, we hear all about the cornering forces and the incredible physical stress that the drivers go through as they corner. But this was just sitting in a straight line, and that was incredible just to feel that force.
I think something in common with everybody in Formula One is we all want to win. Our main motivation is we want to win. We always believe in ourselves, the drivers obviously believe in themselves, and we can believe we can get a better result out of it at the next race.
Is the mecca. Is a lot of the sponsors decide to come because it's a very nice and social environment, and obviously is a very unique. It's the only street circuit, and it's got a tradition. And to win in Monte Carlo is something that everybody can be proud.
You strip the whole car down, you crack check everything, fit new parts, rebuild gearboxes, fit fresh engines, probably sent to the painters and have a paint job on it to make it so as it looks tip-top, and then assemble all the thing back together, put it in the truck and go racing. What we're doing today is we're preparing the cars ready for Monaco, which is a week on Sunday. The trucks leave on Saturday, we leave on Monday, and we get ourselves down to Monaco and prepare for the race.
My job is basically to drive the trucks to all European venues. It's fair amount of time away from home, which is the main thing, really. You know, wives and girlfriends, they tend to complain about that, but after all, we all enjoy that, so.
So everyone goes there with high hopes they're going to have a car that works well at Monaco this year, and everyone's quite buoyed up and quite enthusiastic about the place, because even if you've had bad results up until that time, you can still produce a good result at Monaco. And of course Monaco is one of the jewels in the crown as far as Formula One's concerned.
Monte Carlo is a race that to all of us means a lot. To be able to do well here is the second in priority, the second target of the season. The first one, of course, is to be champion, and then is to at least to be successful in Monte Carlo.
Monaco is completely individual for us. For a start, it's a beautiful place to go, and everyone loves it. But as a circuit to work at, it's very difficult. We ship a lot of equipment out to a race. We might take 10 or 15 tons worth of equipment to a race before we've even brought our trucks along. In Monaco, we have a garage that's 20 foot by 10 foot by 10 foot deep, and it's difficult to work in those conditions. We have to push the cars half a mile. We have to work in this separate area. Then in the morning, we have to push the cars back another half mile. So logistically, it's very difficult for us. Monaco is not designed for a Formula One car to go around. Formula One cars are very fast cars that need lots of space to go very fast in. They prefer big open roads. And suddenly you're trying to drive a car that has a lot of power, very fast, around a very tight circuit.
On this city circuit with its narrow streets and sharp corners, a driver's challenges have changed little in the 60-year history of the Monaco Grand Prix.
The drivers even say, you know, we ask for runoff areas at all the circuits, all over the place. And here, we come here quite happily, and there's no runoff areas.
For the drivers, they have to drive very accurately. They can't afford to make any mistakes. In Monaco, if the driver drifts wide, he hits the curb, he hits the guardrail.
You don't have minor accidents here. If you go off at all, it's not a question of sliding into a gravel bed, dragging the car back, dusting it off and going out again. Any mistake here, you pay for highly with a damaged car.
It is a hell of a challenge, and that's why they love coming back. And they sort of say, okay, well, it's dangerous, but what a challenge.
Certainly the indication from the first day was that we're looking pretty competitive here for this weekend, but you know, it's so tight Formula One. If you have a bad crash at the beginning of qualifying and you have to take a spare car, you never quite get the same performance as you do when the drivers are used to their race cars. No matter how well we build the cars, they always feel a bit different, even if it's in the driver's head. That engine wasn't as good and there's not as much downforce and blah blah blah. So we've done some development, quite a lot of development for this race. It's very specific to this one race. It has unique properties and unique requirements from the car. Monaco, the most extreme of the slow, high downforce circuits, we tend to run the cars with the maximum amount of aerodynamic downforce to push the cars onto the road to get them around the twisty corners. And we're not particularly concerned about top speed, because clearly in this place, with the amount of horsepower we have and the weight of the car, drag and top speed is not a problem.
The challenges here are very difficult. The whole team can make a huge contribution to success by having a good strategy on Sunday. It's not just a question of the driver going out there and doing the best job he can. Every mechanic plays a part in the race. You know, if they can change the tyres quicker, if they can get the fuel in quicker, if the guy doing the strategy can just, you know, use a little bit of extra intelligence that the others haven't used, you can make a difference. You can win a race that maybe you shouldn't have won. Of course, there are an infinite number of variables, and they're not independent variables. As you change one thing, everything else alters. So we use a combination of testing, quite a lot of simulation.
The car has a radio on it. We have a radio at the pits. We log, I think, in the region of 50 channels of data on the car. So we'll measure suspension loads, suspension displacements, all four-wheel speeds, various engine variables like water temperature, oil pressure.
We have a lot of inputs. You have a lot of various people in the team working with you, giving you information, not only the driver, the other engineers, the mechanics, and you have to focus out the bits that aren't going to give you the lap time, aren't important, aren't safety critical, and concentrate on the bits that are safety critical, the bits that are going to make the car go faster.
But you can't simulate everything. You can't simulate traffic, you can't simulate incidents. So a great deal of effort goes into race strategy, because the easiest way to pass someone is when they're parked in the pits. Using that strategy properly is essential. The strategy that you employ depends on the number of things, but among those are the way the tyres degrade during the race and the effect of the fuel load as it comes off. Obviously one tends to cancel the other out. As the car gets lighter, it gets quicker, but as the tyres get older, it gets slower.
Monaco is a special case with pit stops. We tend to pit stop as few times as possible.
It's reasonably easy to change your strategy when a race is going on. You can change even the number of stops that you're going to do, and we have done that in the past. You might decide, well, you know, this is going to be a 2-stop race, and then circumstances dictate that maybe it would have been better for a 3-stop race, and we will then pull the car in and put very short fuel in.
I do the fuel, which is put the fuel into the car before every session and during the session, and do the refueling during the pit stop. We do know when the car is coming in anyway, because we get the engineers on the radio and they will let us know the lap before, normally, not before then, because somebody might be, you know, eavesdropping on radio transmissions. And they give us the 40-second call, 20 seconds, and then they will tell us he's in the pit lane.
Now in Monaco, not only do you use a lot of time in the pit lane because it's quite a slow entry and quite a slow exit, but also you come out behind lots of cars and it's very difficult to overtake. So although you'll have a car that's got brand new tyres on, so the driver can go very fast on his new tyres, and a fuel load that might be relatively low, you can't use those advantages.
During the course of practice, we'll have made some measurements of these factors, and during the race I'll be continually updating my calculations and deciding whether the pre-arranged strategy is in fact the right one, or whether we want to change it on the fly.
The race weekends is like a magnet to all the people. So the sponsors with their families and with their partners, they're coming, and then you have a lot of things to do, which is very important for the job, because without the viewers, without the sponsors, I would not be here giving this interview, because this job would not exist.
Like an aircraft pilot, we operate with many checklists to ensure that the fuel's right, the tyres are right, and really just before the race, that's what you're thinking about. Have I checked everything on my checklist? Is everything up to spec?
The two questions that you keep on asking yourself is, have I done everything I have to do? And the second one, let's hope that God is on our side and He's going to help us with a little bit of luck, because that helps. I kind of concentrate personally, I concentrate on the second question more than the first one, because at that point it's too late anyhow.
At the right time, you need to be very focused on the race, the strategy you're doing. So it's a mixture, and you have to learn to change very fast your mind. Like now we do the interview, I have to concentrate what I'm saying, not don't say anything wrong. And maybe in 10 minutes when I'm back in the car, I have to completely switch my mind off of things like the interview and the business, and just concentrate on the car, the setup, if it's sliding too much, understeering, or it's not good on the bumps. So quite fast you have to change your mind. Now, overtaking here in Monaco is virtually impossible, because it's so narrow, and even if you're about 3 seconds slower than the guy who is pushing behind you, you can easily keep him behind you, because it's not possible to overtake. The only possibility is qualifying. Basically the race is already decided on Saturday qualifying session.
A driver's performance during qualifying sessions the day before the race determines his position in the starting lineup. Starting in the 9th and 10th positions, the Benetton drivers will need a stellar performance to finish among the top 6 point-earning spots.
So here, start-finish. It's a new tarmac this year, new asphalt, so should be less bumpy. Here you come to Saint-Devote, it's the first corner. You brake exactly where the zebra crossing is, somewhere about 100 meters before the corner. You arrive in 6th gear, it's about 275 kilometers an hour. So you need to take all the speed with you up to the casino hill. If you lose 1 or 2 kilometers an hour, because you accelerate late or to do a little mistake, you lose a lot of lap time up the hill. Over the hill, you just brake somewhere here, so just after you stopped flying basically, after the stomach settled down. Then it's the 4th gear corner, you need to stay on the very inside. Then you go down here to Mirabeau corner, 1st gear corner, but you're arriving in 4th gear in the race. It's a very difficult brake maneuver here because you brake downhill. It's a bit bumpy, you have manhole covers. It's not easy. You need to brake really late. You can make a lot of lap time here. And then the inside wheel is always in the air because the road just drops away under you. It's a bit difficult for having control of the brakes. It's 1st gear, as I said. You accelerate up to 2nd gear. Brake exactly here where the taxi stands are ending. Shift down in 1st gear. It's the slowest corner of Formula 1. Don't touch the curbs on the inside. Short shift into 2nd gear. You go over these curbs here on the right side. It's a very difficult corner because the car is always very much understeering. Then here is quite bumpy to the next right-hander. You enter here, 2nd gear, little brake. Very important corner before the tunnel. Then you accelerate out 2nd gear. It's about 110 kilometers an hour through the corner. Then very hard acceleration. You reach about 280, 285 kilometers an hour in the exit of the tunnel. So this corner, 6th gear, is flat, very difficult to go flat around here. It's with 260. Then you come here to Harbour Chicane. You brake about 100 meters. It's a downhill brake, very difficult as well. Don't touch the curbs on the inside because they are very hard for the car, upset them. Accelerate out here in 1st gear, very close to the rail guards. You go down here, 2nd, 3rd gear. Then you come to Tabac corner. It's a very difficult corner, I like it a lot. And on the exit of the corner, the circuit gets so much grip during the weekend, with the rubber going down on the circuit, that you can really go very fast around this corner. But you never believe it when you enter the corner. You always think, oh, I lost the car. But then you get the grip and you just go around. Then it's very important to accelerate here, very smooth. It's a bit slippery because here is the harbor with the boats, and there's a fish shop which always washes his fish on the outside. So it's very slippery here. And you go down to Raskas corner. Extremely difficult to brake around this left-hand corner. You always think you're so slow, but it's not true, because if you want to go faster, you end up like many race drivers in the Raskas part. On the right side, you have the pit exit, which is a very narrow exit. Quite tricky. You have to be very careful here. Very easy place to lose the car, just when you came out of your pit stop. And then you go straight up here to the start-finish line.
1 hour and 50 minutes later, after 78 laps around the Monaco street circuit, the Grand Prix ends with only 8 of 22 cars finishing the race.
In Monte Carlo it's very difficult to finish the race, and we finish 2 cars in 5th and 6th, so that's great.
Placing 5th and 6th earns the Benetton team crucial points in the race for the World Championship.
Down to the hard work of the team, reliability of the car. But in Monte Carlo circuit, I must say, it's down to the fitness of the drivers. Just to cope for races like Monaco, where it's hot, it's long, and the Monaco circuit doesn't allow you a single mistake. It was very nice for me. It was my first point this season. I was was really happy with this because I was a long while without the points. But now I hope that more points are coming. I'm just happy for the team because we need this motivation, we need the points.
We know that Formula One is very hard. It's fantastic when you win because it's difficult to achieve it. So, you know, you need to have the passion.
And I think a lot of people, after you spend a couple of years, then you get hooked up forever. And that's, I suppose, I'm one of these people.
I've always wanted to work in Formula One. It's what I love. It's a hobby as well as a job.
10 years ago, I'd have given my right arm to do this job. I'm so lucky, and that always keeps you up. That always gives you enthusiasm. You know, it gives you enthusiasm to go for the next race.
We have another few races to go, and I'm quite positive we will have a few good results for us.
The whole process just carries on non-stop, week after week. You do the same thing basically. You rebuild the car to go to the next race.
It does mean we're presented with a new challenge, which keeps it fresh and keeps it alive.
If one day you think that you know enough, then it's when you go down the hill. You never know enough in this business, you're always learning something new.
It's so technologically and humanly advanced that only for a few years you can be the best. Then somebody else is going to have a better idea and overtake you.
I think the appeal of Formula One is the extraordinary fact that you never know what is going to happen next. It's a huge roller coaster ride, swings and roundabouts and all those other things that all help to make a successful Grand Prix team.
Are you tattooed? Check out the body art story on Discovery.com. Next, catch this week's top science headlines on Discovery News, coming up only on the Discovery Channel.